Hey guys, tonight we sit beside a quiet sea. You hear the hush of waves licking the sand, gentle as a grandmother's lullaby. And above it all, the moon round and luminous, dangling low like a lantern forgotten in the sky. The world is hushed, the stars don't blink, and you're not scrolling, not refreshing, not checking. You're just here. You sit by an old wooden dock where a single fisherman prepares his gear by lantern light. His hands are steady, his eyes weathered but kind. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. The sea knows his rhythm. You might not survive a 9 to 5 in his sandals, but something about his presence feels timeless. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you right now. I love seeing how far this little bedtime boat sails. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The fisherman's name is Wren. You don't know how you know it, but you do, just like you somehow already know the way his boat rocks when he steps aboard, or how the sea gently accepts his presence without protest. You follow him quietly, climbing in, settling beside a bucket of fraying rope and a bamboo pole that smells faintly of salt and rain. He pushes off with a wooden oar, and the dock slips away behind you. The stars widen. The water, dark and endless, laps gently beneath. You feel yourself already untangling, not just your shoulders, but your thoughts. Not just your breathing, but the stories you've been telling yourself all day. The ones that start with, "I should have," or "Why did they say that?" and loop endlessly. Wren hums a soft tune, wordless, old. The kind you'd hum if you'd spent your life in tune with tides instead of deadlines. As his boat glides, you notice how calm everything feels. Not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening slowly. The moon high above trails you, like a friend who never asks for attention. You watch it float beside you in the dark water, mirrored perfectly. It doesn't ripple unless you do. Wren casts his net and then waits. Stillness. Soft creaks of wood. The occasional splash of a curious fish, the sound folding back into the silence. And Wren perfectly at ease, eyes half closed. You try to match his stillness. You breathe in, you breathe out. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." But oh, how often you forget. You chase productivity like a prize Fill your schedule until it groans. You scroll for news, for joy, for something to hold. But here in Wren's boat, there's nothing to refresh, only waves, breath, and moonlight. Wren opens a small clay jar and sips from it. Something warm, maybe ginger tea. He offers it to you. The steam smells of earth and spice. You take a sip. It warms more than your mouth. It loosens something behind your ribs. He speaks at last, barely louder than the wind. The sea only gives what you don't demand. You blink at the reflection of the moon again. It's right there, floating in the water, whole and bright. But you know, if you reached for it, if you tried to catch it, it would shatter instantly. It's only a reflection. No net can hold it. Wren chuckles, maybe at your thoughts, maybe at your silence. Many have ruined their peace chasing moons in the water, and suddenly you remember a story from long ago. A foolish man once saw the moon reflected in a well. Thinking it had fallen from the sky, he tied himself with rope and climbed down, bucket and all, to rescue it. Splash, sputter. The rope snapped. The moon scattered. When he clambered out, wet, bruised, and laughing, he looked up and found the moon still smiling down at him, untouched, unbothered. You feel a chuckle rise in your own chest. Not a loud one, just a gentle acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, you've done the same, reached for something illusory, only to end up soaked and blinking. Isn't it funny? The things we chase with such urgency, only to discover they were never meant to be held. A title, a relationship, an apology that never comes, the perfect moment, always a breath away. You look at Wren. He's watching the moon's reflection now, too, but not with longing, with companionship. As if the moon were an old friend he doesn't need to possess to love. And maybe that's the first lesson. Is letting go truly a loss or simply a return? Wren's net floats in the stillness, catching nothing and catching everything. He leans back. You do too. You let your mind drift, not forward, not backward, just drift. Tonight, nothing must be solved, nothing chased. Just a boat, a breath, and the moonlight that won't be caught. And in the silence, even your heart seems to listen. The boat rocks gently, cradled by the sea, like a lullaby you never outgrew. You and Wren sit quietly, watching the horizon blur into the sky, the stars stitching the two together like an old quilt. He pulls in the net slowly. It drips water like silver threads glistening in the moonlight. But there's nothing inside, not even a scrap of seaweed. You glance at him, expecting a sigh, a frown, some trace of disappointment. But he only nods, as if the sea has spoken, and he understands. He coils the net beside him, careful not to tangle it. There's reverence in the way he moves, like a monk folding his robes. You speak without meaning to. How long have you been fishing? Ren shrugs with a small smile. Long enough to know the net is never the thing that fills. He taps the wood beside him with a calloused finger. People think it's the catch, the full net, the heavy basket. But it's not. It's never that. It's the waiting, the rhythm, the knowing when to throw and when to reel in. The net fills when you stop needing it to. And there it is, again, a quiet teaching, tucked inside a fisherman's words. You think of your own net, the endless trying, the subtle ache of never quite enough. You cast your energy wide into work, love approval plans, dreams, and still the emptiness lingers like a tide that won't recede. You've probably whispered it to yourself on nights like this. Why does it never feel like I've done enough? The Buddha once said, "Desire is a fire that burns and never says enough." And like a fire, it looks beautiful from a distance, motivating, warm, even inspiring. But touch it too long, and it consumes you. Ren tells a story as the boat drifts a tale of a young man who went into the forest with a sack and a dream. He believed that if he gathered enough gold leaves, he could weave them into a cloak that would make him loved by all. Day and night he searched. He stitched, he hoarded, he polished. But the leaves kept crumbling. The gold flaked off. People admired him from afar, but no one came close, afraid they might brush against him and ruin the shine. And so he sat beneath a tree, covered in golden dust, and completely alone. Ren smiles at you, his eyes warm. Sometimes, what we gather most eagerly is what weighs us down the hardest. The boat is quiet again, but your mind stirs gently, not in anxiety, but in recognition. Maybe craving isn't always loud. Maybe it's the soft, constant whisper. Just a little more. Just one more email. One more like. One more box checked. Just a little more and I'll feel it. Satisfaction, peace, worthiness, enoughness. But it never quite arrives, does it? You close your eyes for a moment, just breathing in the salt air. The moon is still above you, round and whole, unbothered by your questions. And for the first time tonight, you consider, what if the net could stay empty? What if fullness wasn't measured by what you catch, but by how gently you cast? Ren dips his fingers in the sea. The ripples spread soft and wide. You do the same. Coolness brushes your skin, like silk underwater. There's nothing to take from it, and yet it gives you something. A pause, a stillness. He reaches into a pouch beside him and pulls out a small, folded square of cloth. He unwraps it to reveal a tiny fish-shaped charm carved from driftwood. "Found this years ago," he says. "When I was younger, I thought it was lucky. I'd rub it before every cast, but the more I clung to it, the less the sea gave." He pauses, turning the charm over in his hand. "I finally tossed it back, not out of anger, out of understanding. The sea doesn't reward clinging. Neither does the heart." He glances at you, smile returning. Still found it on the shore the next day, just drifted back. There's something beautiful about that. A gesture of release that returns not in control, but in grace. So you ask yourself, what are you holding on to so tightly that it can't breathe in your hands? That deadline, that relationship, that version of yourself. You think the world will finally applaud. You think of your own little driftwood fish, whatever it may be, not to shame it, not to throw it away in bitterness, but maybe, just maybe, to let it float back on its own when your hands are open enough to receive it without clutching. Ren stands slowly. His knees creak, but his body flows with the boat. He tosses the net again, not with urgency, but like a wave returning to the shore. And you wonder if you can live like that, giving, casting, showing up, not from fear, but from rhythm. No scoreboard, no race, just presence. You settle your back against the boat's worn side. Above you, the stars look like scattered salt. A few clouds pass soft and slow. And in this moment, your chest feels just a little lighter. You haven't caught anything, but maybe you've already begun to let go. The night deepens like a slow breath drawn gently in by the sea. You hear the waters hush against the hull, a sound so consistent it feels like the world's oldest lullaby. Somewhere in the distance, a heron cries once, then nothing but the soft rhythm of being here. You and Ren sit in that hush, just floating. The net drifts with you, still empty, though neither of you minds. There's a sacred kind of fullness in this waiting. Your gaze turns to the water again. It looks like glass, now perfectly still, reflecting not just the moon, but every flicker of starlight. Even the motion of the boat seems gentler, like it's bowing to the peace that settled between you. Ren sighs, long and quiet, like he's letting go of something old. Then he speaks softly. Still, water shows the sky best. You tilt your head. The words are simple, but they land like a pebble in your chest, sending little ripples through your thoughts. He continues voice, just above a whisper. When the lake is choppy, you can't see anything. But when it's still, everything becomes clear. You watch the sea reflect the heavens. It's not trying. It's just being. And suddenly, you understand this stillness, this real, deep, inner quiet. It isn't emptiness. It's clarity. The Buddha once said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." But how can you know what you truly think when your mind is always moving, shifting, like wind-tossed water? You remember a story Ren once told? Maybe it was earlier. Maybe it's just forming now. A tale of a sage who lived beside a lake so still villagers called it heaven's mirror. They would travel for days just to sit in silence beside it, hoping to catch a glimpse of something more than themselves, something beyond. But the sage warned them gently. The lake only shows you what you already carry. One day, a man came with anger in his heart. He saw the lake rippling with darkness. He blamed the wind, the sky, the fish. But another visitor came with calm, and she saw only stars. What do you see when you look into your own mind? Is it still enough to reflect the moon? Or do thoughts keep stirring up the silt, clouding the truth beneath? Ren leans over the edge of the boat, staring into the reflection again. You follow his gaze. There's your face, softened by moonlight, floating in the dark. You hardly recognize it, not because it's strange, but because it looks peaceful, still, like someone who's finally stopped running. For a moment, you just breathe. No past to fix, no future to chase. Just the sacred now. Ren dips a finger into the water, drawing slow circles. Stillness doesn't come from stopping your life, he says. It comes from stopping your resistance to it. You think about how often you try to force quiet. Noise-canceling headphones, apps with fake rain, yoga poses named after animals you've never seen in real life. But here in this little boat, no effort is needed. Stillness simply arrives when you let it. There's an old parable Ren tells, maybe now, maybe always, about a monk who sat in meditation so long that moss grew on his shoulders and birds nested in his hair. When he finally opened his eyes, the world had changed, but he had not. And when the villagers asked him what he had learned, he only smiled and said, "Everything was already perfect. Once I stopped trying to fix it." You chuckle softly. It's absurd. It's wise. It's both. And maybe somewhere between moss and moonlight, you realize that peace isn't a reward. It's a return. So you ask yourself gently, what happens when I stop trying to control the water? Not in apathy, not in giving up, but in trusting that the sea knows how to hold you. That silence knows how to speak when you stop interrupting it. Ren offers you a warm drink again. This time, it tastes like roasted barley, toasty and earth. You sip it slowly, the warmth grounding you. I used to fish to feed my family, he says. Then I fished to feed my pride. Now I fish to learn patience. He casts the net again slowly, with no desire in the motion. Just rhythm, just ritual. You watch the net sink into the stillness, its weight disappearing. You feel the tension inside you do the same. There's nothing you need from this moment. It's already whole. Even your thoughts soften. They don't vanish, but they stop shouting. They become like birds perched quietly in trees, not flying, not fleeing, just resting. You let your eyes close, not in sleep, but in deep listening. You can hear your breath. The boats creak, the waters lull. And in that sound, you find a kind of homecoming. Maybe stillness isn't silence. Maybe it's just presence, untouched by craving or comparison. And so, as the night unfolds like a lotus in moonlight, you let go a little more. You stop demanding. You stop chasing. You begin to reflect. The night folds deeper around you, soft as worn linen. Clouds pass like thoughts, slow, untethered, unbothered. You and Ren drift in that space between sleep and wake, where the mind begins to loosen its grip and let the heart breathe freely. Ren reaches into the shadows of the boat and retrieves a small, chipped cup made of bamboo. He turns it over in his hands, inspecting the fine cracks along its edge, like old laugh lines on a beloved face. "This used to be my favorite," he says gently, "until it broke." You look at it closely. It's nothing special at first glance. Simple hand-carved, darkened with years of tea and salt air. A few splinters curl along its rim. It's not beautiful in the polished shop window way. It's beautiful in the "I've been used well and still exist" kind of way. "I almost threw it out," Ren admits. "But then I remembered something I heard once, that everything breaks, and the break is part of the story." He places the cup beside you, letting it rest where the moonlight falls across it. This isn't a flaw. It's a teaching. You think about all the things in your life that cracked relationships plans the idea of who you thought you were supposed to be by now, and how often you've tried to hide the fractures, patch them up, pretend they never existed. But the cup doesn't hide its cracks. It wears them like a quiet badge of survival. The Buddha once said, "All conditioned things are impermanent." When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. And maybe that's the secret, not to mourn the break, but to see the truth it reveals, that everything changes. Everything. Even you. There's a story Ren shares as easily as exhaling. A traveler once sought out the wisest monk in the valley. When he arrived at the old temple, he found the monk sitting calmly sipping tea from a cracked ceramic bowl. The traveler, confused, asked, "Why don't you replace it?" The monk smiled. "Because it still holds tea." And so the traveler sat and drank and realized his heart had cracks too. But it still held love. You glance down at Ren's cup again. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to hold what matters. There's a hush in your chest now. Not emptiness, space. You stretch your legs slightly. Feel the wood beneath you, the gentle press of air against your skin. The night wraps itself around your shoulders like a shawl. Nothing has been resolved, and yet nothing feels urgent anymore. People always want things to last, Ren says quietly. But it's the breaking that teaches us how to hold gently. He offers another sip from the kettle, now warm and slightly bitter. Maybe roasted dandelion root. It tastes like earth, like patience. You sit with the warmth in your chest and wonder if everything I hold must one day break. How tenderly am I holding it now, not with fear, not with a need to preserve, but with reverence. The net lies forgotten at your feet. The sea rocks you gently. Somewhere in the distance, a whale calls low and long and haunting, as though the ocean itself is singing to the moon. You close your eyes again. You see the broken cup. You see your own reflections, moments in your life that fractured, scattered, didn't go the way you planned, but you're still here. You're still holding tea. Maybe that's more than enough. Ren begins to hum again, soft and tuneless. You hum along without realizing two voices blending like the night breeze and the waves. There's a sense of sacred repetition in this night. Cast the net, sip the tea, watch the moon, breathe. Not a ritual of striving, but of remembering. There's another old tale Ren shares now, though you're not sure whether he speaks aloud or if it arises from the night itself. A teacher once gave his student a crystal cup and said, "See this cup as already broken. Then you will love it fully while it lasts." At first, the student thought it was a strange way to value something. But over time, they understood. The joy was in knowing nothing could be clung to, not out of despair, but out of wonder. You picture your own life, your own teacups, so to speak. The people, the projects, the little joys that make your heart expand. Can you see them as already changed, already shifting, not to let go of love, but to deepen it? And so you ask yourself now gently, is impermanence a loss or a reason to love more fully? Ren lifts the cup again and pours the last of the tea into the sea. A small gesture, a quiet offering. The ocean accepts it without fuss. Maybe the cup will break tomorrow. Maybe not. But tonight, it still holds warmth. You stretch again, noticing how the boat has turned slightly facing east now. A pale shimmer kisses the horizon. Dawn is not far off, but for now, the stars still watch over you, and the bamboo cup still rests beside you, whole in its brokenness, and so do you. The moon has climbed higher now, casting a path of silver across the water, like a ribbon leading to somewhere sought and secret. You follow it with your eyes, tracing the shimmer until it blurs with the ripples. For a moment, the world seems upside down sky, in the sea in the sky. Everything reflected, but not quite real. Ren watches it too, his face calm in the cool light. There it is, again. He murmurs the moon in the puddle. You look where he points. Sure enough, nestled in a shallow pool at the bottom of the boat, just a collection of spilled water and moonlight. A tiny reflection glows perfect and complete, but it's not really there, you say softly. He smiles. And yet, you can see it. The breeze lifts gently, stirring your hair. The puddle quivers. The moon distorts, then reforms. Still there. Still beautiful. There's a quiet lesson hiding here, like a pearl in the sand. Ren doesn't name it outright. He lets it arrive on its own, the way wisdom often does. The Buddha once said, "With our thoughts, we make the world." And perhaps nowhere is this more gently true than in the things we chase, the illusions we mistake for real, the reflections we try to hold in our hands. You think again of that moonlight puddle. You could scoop it up, try to carry it. But the moment you do, it's gone. Ren tells a tale as the boat rocks, his voice barely louder than the water lapping at the hull. There was once a monk, he begins, who lived at the base of a sacred mountain. One night, during his meditation, he opened his eyes and saw the moon shining in the well outside. It looked so close. He thought, this is a sign. So he rushed out, trying to catch it, slipped, fell in, banged his head on the side. He climbed out, soaking wet, furious, only to see the real moon above him, laughing without sound. You can't help but smile. Ren chuckles too, a quiet, breathy sound. The poor monk spent a week drying his robes, but the point lingers, soft and sticky, like honey on a finger. How often have you confused the reflection for the real thing? You think of the moments you've wanted someone's approval, their attention, their apology, not because it was love, but because it felt like it might reflect love back to you. You remember scrolling endlessly, chasing a glow in the screen, thinking, this will finally feel like connection. You think of the image you carry of yourself, the perfect you who always meditates, never procrastinates, always says the right thing. That moon glow version of you. But when you reach for it, your hand passes through empty water, and still, the reflection remains. Sometimes, Ren says we don't need to grab the moon. Just sit still enough to see it. The net floats untouched at your feet. The sea is kind tonight. It offers reflections without asking for anything in return. You lean over the boat's edge, watching the real moon in the sky and its twin below. One unreachable, one untouchable, both illuminating. Ren offers a small question, like he's placing a feather in your palm. Can you love what you cannot possess? It sits in your mind like a pebble in a stream. Not heavy, just enough to create ripples. Can you love the moon without needing it in your hand? Can you appreciate someone without needing them to be yours? Can you let joy arise, then pass without trying to trap it in a jar? The water shifts. The reflection blurs. Still beautiful. There's another image that comes to you now, soft, unexpected. A child chasing bubbles in a park. Each one glowing with color, round and floating just out of reach. The child laughs, not when they catch the bubble, but simply in the chase itself. Pure delight. No need to own anything, just experience. You feel that same lightness now, that same laughter inside, even without sound. You look down at the little puddle by your foot again. The moon shimmers in it, quiet and temporary. I used to think I needed the catch to be at peace, Ren says, voice barely above the water. Now I know peace isn't in the catching, it's in the seeing. He lifts the net and lets it rest gently across his lap, like a folded blanket. You ever wonder, he adds softly, if we're all just puddles trying to reflect something bigger? You consider that for a while, that perhaps we don't need to shine from ourselves all the time. Maybe it's enough to be clear to reflect. Love, peace, kindness, without needing to be the source. You touch the rim of the boat, the wood smooth and worn under your fingers. You feel present, not powerful, not certain, but fully here. No illusions needed, just breath, just reflection, just the quiet moonlight resting on your shoulder, like a friend who doesn't need to speak to be heard. You lean back again. The sea holds you. The sky accepts you. And the moon, both real and reflected, just shines. The silence grows fuller, not emptier, as if the night is thickening into something sacred. Even your thoughts have softened, as if they've curled up in a corner, finally tired of pacing. Ren moves with care, now lifting a small bundle from beneath the seat. He unwraps it slowly, like a ritual. Inside is an object so strange, you can't help but lean in. It's a bell, delicate, rounded, and polished by years of touch. But something's missing. There's no clapper, you murmur. He nods. Exactly. A bell that doesn't ring. You watch him turn it in his hands, the moonlight catching its curves. He doesn't shake it or strike it. He simply holds it. This came from a monastery up in the mountains, he explains. They say it was meant to teach the monks about speech. A bell that doesn't ring, you ask. What kind of teaching is that? Ren smiles. The best kind. The kind that makes you listen. He places the bell on the bench beside him. It sits quietly, making no sound, and yet you're paying more attention to it than anything else. The Buddha once said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." You let that wash over you, like a gentle tide. How many words have you spoken today, this week? How many filled the air, just to fill the silence? Ren tells a parable now, one that unfolds like the tide rolling back. There was once a young monk who had taken a vow of silence. For 10 years, he didn't speak a single word, not even when he was mocked, not even when he stubbed his toe on the temple steps. One day, an elder monk asked him, "Why do you keep silent?" The younger monk smiled and finally spoke, "Because silence never made a mistake." You laugh softly, surprised. Ren chuckles too. Of course, silence has its flaws, but it rarely adds to the confusion. You sit with that. How many times have your words tried to fix what didn't need fixing, or rushed out before your heart had caught up? Maybe you too have rung like a bell just to be heard, without knowing what needed to be said. The bell without a clapper shines quietly beside you, its stillness louder than speech. Ren picks it up again. This bell helped me remember that sound should come from truth, not from habit. You imagine carrying a bell like that in your pocket. Not to ring, but to remind you, not every thought needs to be said. Not every silence needs to be filled. You think of the last argument you had, the words that spilled too fast, too sharp, the pause you didn't take. What if in that moment you had remembered the bell? Maybe peace isn't always found in the right words, but in the space between them. The boat drifts on. A heron flaps lazily overhead, disappearing into the shadows of the shoreline. The sea makes its own gentle music. No permission needed, no ego in its rhythm. Ren sips from his tea, then leans back again. Speech is like a net too, he says. Cast it with care. You never know what you'll catch, or what you might hurt. You glance out at the dark water. It's so open, so wide, and yet when undisturbed, so silent. Not because it has nothing to say, but because it says everything by being. There's a different kind of communication in this stillness between you and Ren, between the sky and the sea. You realize now that silence can be connection, not distance. A shared breath, not a lack of presence. You reach for the bell, your fingers grazing its smooth surface. It's heavier than it looks. You hold it gently, feeling its weight, the quiet invitation it offers. Pause, listen, speak less, mean more. So you ask yourself gently, what would I hear if I stopped talking for a while? Not just out loud, but inside. What truths live beneath the commentary, the self-judgment, the rehearsed narratives? Maybe, just maybe, you'd hear something older than fear, something softer than shame, something that's been waiting to speak. Once you stopped filling the silence, you set the bell down carefully. It rests without need. Ren closes his eyes now. Not sleeping, just present. You mimic him closing your eyes too. You don't speak. You don't need to. The waves speak in their hush. The night speaks in stillness. And your breath becomes a quiet bell, ringing gently in your chest, again and again and again. You drift not away from the boat, but deeper into it, deeper into this moment, this breath, this strange and sacred quiet. There's a cave on the shoreline, half hidden beneath the cliffs. You hadn't noticed it before. Ren gestures toward it with a nod, as if he knew you would ask. He guides the boat gently into its mouth, careful not to startle the silence. Inside, it's cool and dark, the walls smooth from centuries of waves, whispering against stone. You glance around. The cave isn't large, but the ceiling opens high above you, and the sound changes here. Every movement echoes your breath, the drip of water from the boat's oar, the soft creak of wood. Even your thoughts seem to bounce back louder. Ren rests his hands on the side of the boat. Echoes teach you things, he murmurs. They repeat what you send out. Nothing more. You sit in that for a moment, letting the cave respond with its gentle repetition. He goes on. When I first came here, I didn't like what I heard. I thought the cave was cruel, always throwing my own voice back at me. Then I realized it wasn't judging. It was showing. The Buddha once said, "Your worst enemy cannot harm you as much as your own unguarded thoughts." And you feel that now in the cave. Every time you've doubted yourself. Every moment you've said, "I'm not enough," or "I'll never be." Those thoughts didn't disappear. They echoed, first in your mind, then in how you walked through your day, how you treated yourself, how you spoke to others. Ren reaches into a cloth satchel and pulls out a small wooden flute. He doesn't play it, just holds it gently. There's a story he begins about a boy who wandered into a sacred cave to hear the voice of the gods. He sat for days listening. At first, he only heard his hunger, then his boredom, then his doubts. He shouted into the dark, "Tell me what I am." You wait, breath held slightly. Ren's voice softens. The cave whispered back, "You are what you repeat. You let that settle. You are what you repeat, not just in words, in thoughts, in the way you wake up, in the way you respond when things go wrong, in the tone you use when you speak to yourself. What are you repeating? You close your eyes just for a few moments and let the cave become a mirror. You hear echoes, not words, but feelings. The ache of needing to be accepted. The sharp edge of self-comparison. The habit of bracing for disappointment before joy has even had a chance to bloom. And yet, within that, something quieter, a softer voice, not judging, not afraid, just watching, like the moon, like the sea, like Wren. It doesn't ask for perfection. It doesn't even ask for change. It simply asks you to notice. Wren raises the flute to his lips now. The first note is low and hollow, bouncing across the walls like a stone skipping across still water. Another follows, then another, slow, tentative, then surer. The cave responds, singing the melody, back reshaped, but faithful. You don't need to speak. The cave is already speaking for you. You think of all the times you've reacted instead of pausing. All the sharp replies, the anxious spirals, the self-criticism delivered in the voice of someone you don't even remember anymore. What would it feel like to let those echoes fade, not silence them, not pretend they were never said, but to sit with them until they softened? Wren finishes the song. It trails off like mist. The final note hovers in the air, then fades like breath leaving the body. I used to think I needed to fight the bad thoughts, he says. Now I just let them echo until they get tired. You smile. That feels true. Fighting your thoughts only gives them more energy. But listening, that changes the game. You remember the bell from before. You remember the moon in the puddle. You remember the broken bamboo cup. All of them were trying to teach you the same thing. Listen, watch, be gentle, because what you send out returns. So now you ask yourself with care, what would I hear if I echoed only love, not loud, not dramatic, just consistent, just honest? Could you say to yourself, you are trying, and that is beautiful. You are worthy even when you're quiet. You are allowed to rest. You run a hand along the side of the boat. The cave holds you like a womb, like the earth herself has made a place for your remembering. And the echo at last returns, not with judgment, but with kindness. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. The cave slowly slips behind you as Wren guides the boat back into open water. The coolness of its shadows still clings to your skin like a soft robe pulled from the night. The silence lingers too, but it's different now. Not empty, but charged. like the sky before a storm, or the hush just before someone speaks something true. You stretch your fingers over the boat's edge, letting them trail through the water. The sea accepts them, without question, without resistance. A slight current moves past, barely noticeable, like the breath of something vast and ancient. Ren turns his head slightly, listening. Hear that, he asks. At first, you don't. Just waves and breeze and the slow creak of the boat. But then a sound deeper than all that. Low, rhythmic, almost like breathing. The boat rocks gently with it. The water trembles softly under your hand. There's something beneath us, Ren says with a smile. A dragon, sleeping. You glance at him, waiting for the joke. But he's serene, calm as ever. I don't mean the kind with wings and fire, he continues. I mean the ancient kind, the kind that lives deep beneath the surface of things, the kind that doesn't roar. It breathes, and then you feel it inside yourself, not under the water. A pulse, a rhythm, a breath. Yours, the dragon, it turns out, might just be your own body, your own spirit, resting just below the surface of your thoughts. The Buddha once said, "Just as a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, even so the wise are not moved by praise or blame." And maybe that kind of steadiness starts with learning to feel your own breath, not just when you're gasping or speaking, but when you're still. Ren closes his eyes. His chest rises, falls. You mimic him, slowly, intentionally. Inhale, wait, exhale. You imagine the dragon beneath you, resting at the bottom of the sea, its belly expanding with each breath, warming the ocean from below. It doesn't rise, it doesn't chase, it just breathes, endlessly, calmly. There's a story Ren shares now, his voice slow as the tide. A young monk once sought enlightenment by climbing the tallest mountain. He fasted, he chanted, he meditated with fierce determination. But the winds were cruel, and the cold bit deep. One morning, exhausted, he lay down beside a hot spring and slept. He dreamt of a dragon curled beneath the earth, its breath heating the stones, its body coiled around the mountain's heart. When he awoke, he realized the truth. Peace was not in the peak. It was in the warmth beneath his spine, the breath he had ignored in pursuit of something greater. So he went back down the mountain and breathed. You sit now, letting that story seep into your bones. The breath fills your chest, but it doesn't need to be perfect. It's not performance. It's not a ritual. It's the dragon, ancient, wise, steady. You ask yourself, how often have I tried to slay the dragon instead of befriending it? Not just in the mythic sense, but in daily life. The anxiety you try to conquer, the stress you try to silence, the grief you try to outpace. But what if all of that is just the dragon's breath? What if your feelings aren't enemies, but invitations? You breathe again. Inhale, pause, exhale. The sea matches you. The moon nods its approval. Ren's voice returns. When I was younger, I thought breathing was boring, he says with a laugh. I thought meditation was supposed to give me fireworks, he shrugs. But it gave me a dragon instead. Much better deal, honestly. You smile, feeling your shoulders drop. Tension you didn't realize you were holding slips down your back, spills into the sea. There's a lightness in you now. Not the giddy kind, but the kind that comes from finally putting something down. A burden you've carried so long, it began to feel like a part of you. Ren opens a palm and says nothing, just breathes. You mirror him. In, out. The world narrows to just this motion. The thoughts still arrive, whispers of tasks, regrets, plans. But you let them drift past like sea foam on the surface. The dragon doesn't mind. It keeps breathing beneath them all, and maybe that's the lesson. You don't have to banish your thoughts. You only need to return, to breathe, to now. You sit together in silence. No story needed, no lesson demanded. Just a shared rhythm. The stars shimmer overhead. The sea hums, and far beneath it all, the dragon sleeps, knowing everything is as it should be. You feel that now, in your bones, in your breath, and in the stillness, you know you've already arrived. The boat drifts, nudged by a slow current that doesn't ask permission. You lean over the edge, eyes half-lidded, watching the reflections of stars stretch and shimmer like whispers in motion. The water seems gentler now, as if your breath has made a small peace offering to the sea. Ren lifts his gaze skyward, tracking something with his eyes. You follow, squinting slightly, and catch the movement, a single feather spiraling down from above. It dances in slow circles through the moonlight, finally settling on the water's surface without a sound. You watch it float, untouched, unbothered. That, Ren says softly, was once part of someone's flight. The feather drifts away from the boat, carried not by force, but by softness. And something in you shifts, recognizing its grace, not just the feather, but the letting go it took to be released. Ren reaches into his tunic and draws out a bundle wrapped in faded cloth. He unfolds it to reveal something unexpected. A small bundle of old papers, letters perhaps tied with string. You catch glimpses of handwriting, faint and slanted, and words that look like names. I used to carry these everywhere, he says. Apologies never sent. Answers never received. Things I thought I needed to keep. You glance at the bundle. It feels heavy, not in weight, but in meaning. They were feathers once, he continues, but I kept tying them to my heart like anchors. You feel that? Deeply. The way we carry blame we owe, blame we assign. The way guilt curls itself around the ribs. The way memory whispers not just what happened, but how we should have handled it differently. Ren sighs and leans back. One day, I realized, if I keep them, I can't fly. He unties the bundle. The letters flutter in the wind, but he doesn't stop them. He holds one gently, reads a few lines, then sets it on the water. It floats like the feather. Light now, free. You watch in silence as he releases another, then another. The words melt into the sea like stories told long ago. Not erased, just no longer clutched. The Buddha once said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned, and maybe it's not just anger. Maybe it's regret. Maybe it's the guilt you wear, like a favorite coat, threadbare, but familiar. You look out into the night and ask yourself softly, what am I still blaming myself for? That the moment has already forgiven. The feather drifts farther, its edges curling with damp. It's not fighting the sea. It simply floats, allowing the water to carry it somewhere unknown. There's a story Ren tells barely louder than the waves. It's about a young woman who carried a bag of stones wherever she went. Each stone represented a past mistake, some her own, some other people's. She couldn't rest, couldn't breathe fully, always weighed down. One day, she met an old teacher who asked what she was carrying. These are what I must remember, she said. The teacher nodded, then asked, and what if remembering isn't the same as reliving? The woman didn't understand at first, so the teacher took one stone from her bag and placed it gently beside the path. You can still come back to it, he said, but now your hands are free. You breathe deeply, letting that settle in your chest, not forgetting, not pretending, just loosening. Ren hands you one of the old letters. The ink is smudged, the paper soft at the edges. There's no name, just a single sentence. I was doing my best, and I know now, so were you. You fold it gently, then open your palm over the water. The letter drifts away. You don't feel a burst of joy. No fanfare. Just a quiet sense that something inside you has loosened, like a knot gently coming undone. Ren leans over the side, watching the feather, the letters, the tide. Birds don't cling to feathers, he murmurs. They release what they no longer need and keep flying. You let your head rest against the edge of the boat. The stars look softer somehow. Your breath feels deeper, and the tightness you didn't even know you'd been carrying, it's lighter now. You ask yourself with kindness, this time, can I let go without needing to be right first? The answer isn't loud. It doesn't have to be. A feather floats. A letter drifts. And you, for once, don't chase after them. You simply let them go. The sky has shifted again. The stars blink more slowly now, like they're nodding off one by one. The sea holds its breath. Even the breeze feels like it's walking barefoot, careful not to disturb what's begun to settle in you. Wren reaches into a small wicker basket tucked under the bench and pulls out a thermos wrapped in cloth. He uncaps it, pours a small stream of liquid into a second bamboo cup, the twin of the cracked one you saw earlier. He offers it to you with a quiet smile. You bring it to your lips. The tea is cool now. Once hot, once full of steam and comfort. But now it's room temperature. Flat. Ordinary. You take a slow sip. It's not bad, just cooled too long. Wren watches you taste it. I made it right before we set off, he says. Meant to drink it while it was still warm. You glance at him waiting for the point. He only sips his own cup and says, we miss so many things because we're not where we are. You cradle the cup in both hands, suddenly aware of how often you postpone presence. The warm tea you leave sitting. The message you don't answer. The sunrise you don't look at because you're already on your way somewhere else. The Buddha once said, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Simple, but not always easy. You remember a story Wren told not tonight, but somewhere deeper in memory. A guest was invited to a great master's home. The table was set, the tea was brewed, but the guest kept glancing out the window, fidgeting, checking their bag, as if waiting for something more important to arrive. The master said nothing, only sat and drank his tea. By the time the guest realized what they were missing, the tea was cold. The master poured no second cup. You smile faintly now. The story doesn't sting, it soothes. Like a friend nudging your shoulder with a quiet, hey, just be here. You sip the cooled tea again. This time, you taste the story in it. The moment. The pause. You missed the warmth, yes, but not the meaning. Wren stretches his arms over his head, then folds them behind his neck. I've wasted whole seasons waiting for a better moment, he admits. But they don't come. Just this one. Repeated, you glance around the boat. Nothing's changed. and yet everything feels different, more alive, more awake. The way things look when you finally open your eyes, not just to see, but to receive. He continues, "We're always hoping life will bring us something else, but maybe it's already brought us everything, just not in the shape we expected." You rest the cup on the bench beside you. The wind lifts a little, rustling the folds of your clothes. Even the breeze feels more real now, more here. You remember a time you were laughing, surrounded by friends. Someone poured you a cup of tea. You never drank it. You were too busy enjoying the moment to notice it slipping away. Now you wonder, what if we miss joy? Not because it's rare, but because we're rarely still enough to notice it. Ren reaches into his basket again and pulls out a small packet, some dried herbs maybe. He sprinkles a pinch into the empty cup, then pours fresh water over it from a flask. The scent rises, slowly chamomile orange peel, maybe a little mint. "We try again," he says with a wink. You hold the cup this time, watching the steam curl like smoke signals. You feel the warmth seep into your fingers, soft and real. You don't rush. You don't wait. You're simply here, holding the moment before it cools. He nods approvingly, like a teacher whose student has finally stopped looking out the window. There's another story he shares, voice drifting with the steam. A man once went on a long pilgrimage to find enlightenment. He crossed deserts, climbed mountains, fasted under sacred trees. But no matter how far he traveled, he felt the same restless. One day, tired and dusty, he stopped by a roadside tea stall. The woman there handed him a hot cup without a word. He drank it, slowly, completely, and in that moment, he arrived. He never finished the pilgrimage. He stayed in the village and opened his own tea stall, pouring presents into every cup. You sip your warm tea now, and it tastes like that moment. Complete. Nothing missing. Not the first cup you skipped. Not the plans ahead. Just this one, right now. You let the warmth spread through your chest. And for the first time in what might be days, weeks, years, you feel fully here. And so you ask yourself, what am I putting off for a better moment that's already happening? Ren finishes his tea and exhales with satisfaction. Not exaggerated, just honest. The boat drifts on. The stars remain unchanged. But something inside you feels steeped, not rushed, not waiting, just brewed long enough to become what it was meant to be. The tea lingers in your mouth, not as taste anymore, but as warmth, a subtle presence beneath your ribs. The cup is empty now, but somehow it feels like it's still full. You rest it beside you and close your eyes for a few heartbeats, letting the weight of the moment press gently down on your shoulders, like a soft hand reassuring you. There's no need to rush. The boat begins to turn guided, not by effort, but by the slow sweep of the current. You find yourself watching the shoreline where a stone path curls up a hill toward a distant structure, barely visible but familiar. A wooden gate, a small bell hanging from a string. A cloister. Ren nods toward it. I used to live up there. You look at him surprised. Somehow you imagined he'd always been part of the sea. I swept that path, he continues, every day. Rain or shine, leaves, dust, blossoms. Whatever the world dropped, you see it in your mind's eye. A younger version of him, perhaps less lined around the eyes, pushing a straw broom down that uneven path step by step. Slow, quiet, always returning. It never stayed clean, he adds with a small grin. But that was never the point. He leans forward, pulling the oars through the water, now guiding the boat toward the edge of the island. There's a rhythm in repetition, he says, not to fix the world, but to stay connected to it. The Buddha once said, "Little by little, a person becomes good as a water pot is filled by drops of water, and that image fills you now, a clay pot left beneath a drip, unnoticed, day after day, until one day it overflows, not through effort, through constancy." Ren tells a story of the old monk who swept the path before him. A man with a crooked back and eyes like polished stones. No one ever saw him teach. He never gave Dharma talks. He just swept every day for 50 years. When asked what the sweeping was for, he would say, only to remember the way, not to remove, but to return. You look at the shoreline again. A single lantern glows near the entrance to the old temple, its light flickering in rhythm with the sea. You imagine the sound of the broom's bristles against stone, the soft scrape, the pause, the next sweep. There's something healing in that image. You think of all the ways you try to fix things, relationships, mistakes, yourself. And suddenly, you wonder, what if healing isn't fixing, but returning to what? Maybe to breath, maybe to kindness, maybe to sweeping the path, not to perfect it, but to remember it's there. Ren smiles, as if he's heard your thought. I still sweep, he says. Not stone anymore, but nets, decks, sand off the oars. You watch his hands. Even now, they move with that same rhythm, cast, gather, fold, like a broom in motion, like prayer without words. You feel your own breath syncing with that rhythm. A little slower now, a little more attentive. He offers you a folded cloth, an old rag, but clean and soft. Wipe the edge of the boat. He says, not as a command, but an invitation. You take it. You run the cloth slowly along the worn wood. Salt, dust, small flecks of dried seaweed. You don't scrub. You don't rush. You just move with care, stroke by stroke. And oddly, it feels sacred. In that moment, you realize you've spent so much of your life trying to arrive somewhere. But maybe the real peace is in the tending, not in building the perfect life, but in tending gently to the one you already have. You hand the cloth back. Wren tucks it away. The first time I swept that path, I thought it was meaningless, he says. The 100th time I realized it was teaching me how to be with myself. You nod understanding now, in your body more than your mind. You ask yourself quietly, what small act could I return to each day? Just to remember who I am, not to achieve, not to be noticed, but simply to come home. Maybe it's making your bed, washing your cup, sitting with a candle, saying one kind word, even if no one hears it but you. The boat nudges up to the island now. Wren ties it to a wooden post near the base of the path. The gate above sways gently in the breeze, creaking softly, like it remembers you. You don't step onto shore just yet. You sit a while longer, letting the image of the sweeping monk settle into you. Dust will return. Leaves will fall. The path will never stay clean. And that's okay, because the point is to keep sweeping. You sit in the boat a little longer, watching the wind ripple across the lantern's glow near the temple gate. The path above is quiet, but something about it hums like an old bell just after it's been struck. You can feel its echo, even from down here, carried on the breeze. Wren doesn't move to climb the hill. Instead, he sits again beside you, gaze resting on the slow-moving clouds above. There was a nun who lived up there, he says. She never spoke much, but she once told me something I never forgot. You turn to him, but waiting. He draws a breath, holds it for a heartbeat, then lets it go with a faint smile. She said, "Clouds never argue with the wind." You glance up at the sky. The clouds shift and drift, some thick, some whisper thin, all moving without resistance. Not in a rush, not in a battle, just responding gracefully to whatever the sky offers. You let that image settle inside you. How much energy do you spend resisting things you can't change? How many hours have you wrestled with reality, trying to make it match your idea of how things should be? The Buddha once said, "The root of suffering is attachment." And maybe attachment isn't only to people or things. Maybe it's to control, to needing life to unfold exactly the way we imagined. You close your eyes for a moment and feel the breeze on your face. It doesn't ask you to follow. It doesn't push. It just moves. The clouds drift along, no plan, no protest. Ren reaches into his satchel and pulls out a small paper fan, unfolding it slowly. Painted on one side is a simple ink drawing a mountain, a tree, and a wisp of cloud. On the other side, written with careful brushstrokes, "Move like mist, not like stone." He fans himself gently and then offers it to you. You take it, watching the painting sway with each breeze. There's something soothing in the way the paper folds and unfolds, soft, yielding. There's a story, he says, about a monk who once tried to meditate during a windstorm. You smile. Sounds familiar. He grew frustrated. Ren continues. The wind howled, the trees creaked, the lanterns rattled. He clenched his jaw, tried to force his focus. After hours of struggle, he went to the temple elder, ready to complain, and Ren smiles. The elder was meditating too, in the same storm. But when the younger monk burst in, the elder simply opened his eyes and said, "Did you try becoming the wind?" You chuckle. It's absurd. And also, exactly right. How often have you braced yourself against something, thinking resistance was strength? The hard conversation, the changed plans, the unexpected silence. What if peace isn't found in control, but in adaptation? Can I be like the cloud? You wonder, drifting without argument. You fan yourself lightly. Now, the air against your skin, a gentle reminder you don't always have to hold the line. You can let go. You can bend. You can soften without disappearing. Ren turns his gaze toward the temple. That nun, he says, used to sweep the walkway during storms. She said the rain helped. You imagine her robes, billowing broom in hand, content to move with the weather instead of waiting for it to pass. She taught me. He adds that yielding doesn't mean weakness. It means wisdom. Clouds don't fight the sky. They simply trust it to carry them. You sit with that for a while. The clouds continue their slow parade. One of them looks like a sailboat. Another like a sleeping fox. But mostly, they look like themselves, formless, yet full, temporary, yet complete. You think of all the places in your life where you've been trying to be the saw, holding your ground, clinging to certainty, pushing back. Maybe you needed that strength once. Maybe it protected you, but now maybe softness is the real courage. You look at the fan in your hand, the ink painting, the soft paper, the phrase, "Move like mist, not like stone." You wonder gently, where in my life can I loosen? Just a little, not abandon, not collapse, just relax. Let go of the script. Trust the sky to carry you. The boat rocks with the smallest wave, like the sea is nodding. Ren leans back, eyes half closed, letting the wind play with his hair. You close the fan and place it on your lap, holding it with both hands. It doesn't buzz, it doesn't glow, but it holds a truth sharper than any screen. Above you, the clouds continue to drift, and so do you. The shoreline thins out now, curving back into open water. The boat floats past reeds and driftwood, beyond the path, beyond the temple. The night has deepened into that blue, so dark it's nearly black, and yet somehow everything is still visible. The silver light of the moon, outlining each wave, each fold in Ren's robe, even the wrinkles at the corner of his eyes. You sense something approaching. Not a sound, not a sight, just a feeling, like the hush before a dream arrives. Ren's hands move toward the net again. It's been resting quietly at his feet for hours now. You'd nearly forgotten it was there. He picks it up and begins folding it methodically, like someone handling something sacred. I chased an invisible fish once, he says. You blink. Invisible. He nods. Every morning, same spot, same cast. I swore I saw it. Just a flicker, just a shadow. But it was never in the net. Not once. He holds the net up, spreading it gently across his knees. Some days, I thought it was a trick. Other days, I believed it was a test. But every day, I came back. You lean in slightly, the curiosity rising in you, not loud, but undeniable. I told myself, Ren continues. If I catch it, I'll finally be enough. He sighs, not regretfully, just honestly. But that's the danger with invisible things. They don't live in the water. They live in the mind. The Buddha once said, "There is no fire like passion, no shark like hatred, no snare like folly, no torrent like craving." And now, sitting here, the invisible fish begins to take shape, not as a creature in the sea, but as an idea you've known intimately. The perfect outcome, the validation you never got, the moment you keep chasing when you say, "Once I have this, I'll be okay." You don't need Ren to spell it out. You've fished these waters too. The job that will finally prove your worth. The message that will undo an old hurt. The version of yourself that never stumbles, never forgets, never feels lost. Ren lowers the net back into the boat. "You know what I finally caught?" he asks. You raise your eyebrows slightly. A piece of seaweed. That's all. Just a clump of seaweed tangled in the net. But when I looked closer, he pauses, grinning. It had a tiny shell inside. A spiral. Perfect. Hidden. Something real. He chuckles. Not what I was looking for, but exactly what I needed. There's a story he tells now, so gentle, you feel it more than hear it. A farmer once dreamed of a golden ox. Each night, the ox appeared shining, magnificent, always just beyond reach. The farmer searched far and wide, leaving behind his family, his field, even his shoes. Years passed. Finally exhausted and hungry, he returned to his land. The dream was gone. In its place, a patch of wild mushrooms had sprung up where the ox had once stood in his dreams. He knelt, picked one, and tasted it. It was the first time he had tasted anything in years. Wren looks at you, eyes calm. Not all treasures sparkle. Some are hidden in seaweed. Some in silence. You look out over the water again. It stretches endlessly, dark and soft, like sleep. No invisible fish tonight. No perfect catch. And yet, your chest feels more full than it has in a long time. You ask yourself gently, what dream have I been chasing so hard that I've missed the gifts right beneath me? Not to abandon your hopes, not to stop trying, but to ask what is real right now that you're overlooking in your search for something invisible. You think of small kindnesses, unnoticed joys. That one morning where you woke up without dread. That moment when someone listened without trying to fix you. That unexpected laughter that slipped out of your mouth before your thoughts caught up. Those are real, tangible, spiraled shells hidden in the weeds. Wren begins coiling the net, carefully, placing it back under the seat. I still fish, he says, but now I cast with open hands. If nothing comes, that's okay. Sometimes the sea gives gifts I didn't know I needed. You nod slowly. The fish may have been invisible, but you're not. You're here, present, breathing, awake. You close your eyes and feel the gentle bob of the boat, the way it rocks, not to lull you to sleep, but to remind you that being carried is not the same as being lost. The net doesn't need to be full. You are already whole. The sea has gone quiet again, the kind of quiet that hums. Even the breeze has paused, as if something sacred is about to happen, or already is, and it's too shy to announce itself. Wren sets the oars across his knees and points gently ahead. Tonight's a festival night, he says, in the village downriver. Lanterns on the water. You squint toward the horizon and see them tiny flickers at first, like stars that have fallen into the river. They drift slowly, glowing in soft oranges and golds, hundreds of them. Each one a little world, a little prayer. Wren begins rowing, but softly now, as if not to startle the beauty ahead. The boat glides toward the glowing trail of lights. It's a ritual of release, he explains. They write something on paper, sometimes a wish sometimes a sorrow, and float it away. You breathe in. That feels meaningful already. Even before you do it. Even before you understand how. The Buddha once said, "You yourself must strive." The Buddhas only point the way. And maybe this river of lanterns is one of those points, glimmering quiet, asking nothing but honesty. As you near the edge of the floating lights, Ren hands you a folded slip of rice paper, a brush, a small vial of ink. You hold them, carefully humbled by their simplicity. "Write something you're ready to release," he says, even if you're not sure how. The ink glides over the paper as you begin, slowly, thoughtfully. Your hand trembles a little, not from fear, but from truth. You write without overthinking, not for eloquence, just for presence. Maybe it's a name, maybe a memory, maybe a version of yourself you've outgrown, but keep wearing like an old coat. When you finish, Ren passes you a lantern. It's made of paper and bamboo, delicate yet sturdy. A single flame flickers inside, steady, despite the night wind. You place your note inside, fold the top shut, and lower it into the water. It floats gently, then begins to drift, joining the long procession of silent little boats, carrying the weight of unseen hearts. Your breath catches. It's not sad. It's not dramatic. It's peaceful. You watch it go, your note glowing from within before it fades into the blur of distant lights. Ren doesn't watch your lantern. He's lighting his own. You don't ask what's written on his paper. He doesn't ask what's written on yours. That's the beauty of it. Some things don't need explanation to be honored. There's a story, he says, voice soft now, like he's speaking, so the lanterns can hear too. A woman once came to the Buddha carrying the body of her child. She begged him to bring the boy back to life. You feel your chest tighten gently. The Buddha told her, "Bring me a mustard seed from a home untouched by death, and I will do as you ask." Ren pauses. She searched for days, weeks. Every home welcomed her, gave her tea, held her hands. But no one had been spared grief. He turns to you. She returned empty-handed and placed the child's body into the river. Not because her pain was gone, but because she realized she wasn't alone. You stare at the water, at the river of lights, at all those soft, burning flames drifting away from invisible hands. Some are probably wishes. Some are probably griefs. Some are goodbyes no one ever got to say. And yet, none of them look lost. They look beautiful. They look free. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the fullness of the moment press softly against your heart. You ask yourself quietly, what have I been carrying alone that I could let float tonight? Not to forget, but to share. With the river, with the stars, with whatever silent force listens when we finally stop pretending we don't need to be held. Another lantern drifts past the boat, then another, and another. You light one more. No note this time, just breath. You place it on the water with nothing inside but your presence. It floats, joins the others, and becomes part of the long silver ribbon that trails through the dark. Ren leans back again, folding his arms beneath his head. I used to think letting go meant loss, he says. Now I think it means making room. You lie down in the boat, side by side with the oars and coils of net. The sky above you is full of stars. The river around you is full of light, and your chest, strangely, is full of space. You don't need to chase your lantern. You don't need to see where it ends up. You just need to trust the river. The river has grown wide, almost like a quiet lake now. The current is soft, almost invisible, and the lanterns drift past in a slow, glowing procession, like tiny dreams, too gentle to hold, too honest to forget. You lie back in the boat, feeling the cool wood beneath you, the weight of your body, the way gravity wraps around your limbs like a warm blanket. You could fall asleep like this. But then you notice something ahead. A bridge. It rises gently from one shore to another, made of worn wood and stone, graceful in its simplicity. But there are no railings, just planks, thin and open with space on either side, for the river to whisper right beneath your feet. Ren looks at the bridge and exhales slowly, as if remembering something old. That's the crossing, he murmurs. The path from one mind to another. He doesn't explain further. He doesn't need to. You feel it already. The bridge isn't just a bridge. It's a metaphor, a moment, a quiet question. Will you cross? Without holding on. The Buddha once said, when you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. And you think now of all the things you've gripped tightly, trying to stay safe, trying not to fall. People, outcomes, expectations, certainty. But this bridge asks something else of you. Not control, not precision, just trust. Ren pulls the boat gently to the riverbank and offers his hand. You don't have to cross, he says, but if you do, don't look down. Look forward. You step out of the boat. The grass is damp beneath your feet. The night air brushes your skin like silk. And the bridge waits, not demanding, not urgent, just present. You place one foot on the first plank. It creaks softly. Then the next. There's nothing beneath your hands. No rope, no railing. Just space. You breathe. Inhale. Step. Exhale. The wood moves slightly under your weight. Not to scare you, but to remind you. Everything that feels solid is still alive, still shifting, still uncertain. Halfway across, the wind picks up. It's not strong, but it's enough to wake something inside you. A flutter, a doubt. Wren calls from the shore. Don't stiffen. Breathe with it. You remember the clouds from earlier. The way they didn't argue. The way they trusted the sky. You soften your knees. You release your shoulders. And you keep walking. There's a story Wren once told, maybe now, maybe always, about a tightrope walker in an old village. He performed each week in the town square, walking from one rooftop to another. The crowd would gab and cheer. One day, someone asked him, "Aren't you afraid you'll fall?" He smiled and said, "Of course I am. That's why I walk with love, not fear." You smile now, halfway across your own invisible rope. The stars above seem closer. The water below is quiet, not threatening. And each step becomes a kind of meditation, not because it's perfect, but because it's awake. You don't rush. You don't pause. You just move, breath by breath, step by step, until at last you're on the other side. You turn and look back. The bridge still sways, still open, still unguarded. But something has changed. Not the bridge. You, Reen, meets you there as if by magic. Or maybe he took his own path. He doesn't say. He only offers you a small smile, the kind that says, "You did something hard." And I saw it. You sit together again on the riverbank, the grass cool and sweet beneath you. The boat waits nearby, bobbing softly in the current. You ask yourself, what would it feel like to walk through life without always needing a railing? Not recklessly, but trustfully, with breath instead of grip, with awareness instead of armor. Wren lies back, hands behind his head. Bridges are meant to move, he says. That's how they hold. You rest beside him, feeling the earth hold your body, the sky hold your thoughts, the moment hold your heart. You crossed, you trusted, and nothing had to be perfect. The riverbank is soft beneath your spine, a gentle earth hug that cradles you as if the ground itself is glad you've come home. Crickets sing in the distance, slow and rhythmically, their chirps timed with the pulse of the night. The lanterns drift behind you, now glowing further away, like memories floating toward peace. You and Wren lie quietly in the grass, the bridge behind you, the river to your side. No need to speak. But then Wren points not with urgency, but with quiet wonder toward a stretch of marsh not far ahead. Tall reeds stand there, clustered together, like a congregation of monks in meditation. You hadn't noticed them before, and yet they've been there all along, still and attentive, whispering only when the wind asks them to. Reeds don't shout, Wren murmurs. They listen, even when bent. You watch them sway slightly in the breeze. Their movements are so subtle, they seem part of the air itself. The Buddha once said, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace." And watching these reeds, you understand they speak without noise. They stand without boasting. They bend without breaking. There's a story Wren shares as the stars slowly blink across the sky. Once a young monk complained to his master, "Every time I try to be calm, something upsets me. People say things. Thoughts rise up. I react before I can stop myself." The master simply led him to a field of reeds and said, "Stand here. Say nothing. Just watch." The young monk stood for hours, restless at first. But as the wind shifted and the reeds moved, something changed in him. He stopped thinking. He started noticing. He saw that the reeds bent easily, flowed with the breeze, and never resisted. When the wind stilled, so did they. The master returned and asked, "What did you learn?" The monk replied, "I want to be like that, and so do you." You sit up now, slowly watching the reeds more closely. Their silence is powerful, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of strength, of choosing when not to speak, when not to react, when to let things pass. You think about how often you've felt the need to defend yourself, to correct, to respond, to fix a misunderstanding the moment it arises. That tension in your shoulders when you think, "I can't let that go unchecked." But the reeds show you another way. They don't abandon the wind. They don't brace against it. They just respond, then return. Wren gathers a few reeds in his hand, holding them gently. "They've taught me more about patience than any book," he says. "More about strength than any sword." He sets them down unbroken. You begin to notice how still the rest of the world has become. Not in a frozen way, but in a poised way. As if the entire night is listening. You ask yourself, what if I could respond to the world the way reeds respond to the wind, without panic, without resistance, just presence, not weakness, not passivity, but non-reactivity, the kind that gives space for understanding before action. You think of your own wins, a harsh word from someone you love, a plan that collapsed, an unexpected change that left you scrambling. And you wonder, what would it feel like not to fight every gust, just to breathe this way and stay rooted? Wren stands and walks into the reeds. You follow quietly. The stalks part for you. They brush your arms, your legs. Their touch is like breath, barely there, but enough to awaken. You reach out and gently hold one reed in your hand. It bends beneath your fingers, but doesn't snap. Its strength isn't in its stiffness. It's in its willingness to move. The moonlight filters through the tops of the reeds. The breeze picks up slightly. The entire marsh sways as one, like a chorus in slow motion. And for a moment, you feel it. Not just see it or understand it, but feel it. This is what inner peace can be. Not a locked fortress, but a field of reeds, still when stillness is needed, moving when it's time to yield, rooted always in quiet presence. Wren stands beside you, silent. You don't need to speak either. The reeds have already said enough. You close your eyes and ask gently, what part of me is strong enough to be sought? And in the silence that follows, your breath slows again, your thoughts loosen, and your heart learns just a little more how to bend. The reeds thin as you walk, and the marsh begins to fade behind you, replaced once again by open water. The boat rocks at the edge of the riverbank, waiting with its steady patience, like a friend who never minds how long you take to return. You step back in, and Wren follows, settling the oars without urgency. The current is picking up now, subtle but certain. The boat moves without rowing the river, choosing its own rhythm. You let it. For a while, there is only silence. Then a sound, a soft pattering on the water's surface. One drop, then another, then 1,000. Rain. It starts gently, like a blessing. Light, rhythmic, cool. The air thickens with petrichor, the earthy scent rising from unseen soil. The sea absorbs the rain, like a mother welcoming her child. Wren pulls his robe tighter, but doesn't move to cover his head. It'll pass, he says calmly. Storms always do. You look down at your feet. A few drops are already collecting inside the boat, forming tiny puddles. One drips from the edge of your sleeve, another from your hairline. It's not dangerous. It's not loud. But still, there's that flicker of anxiety. What if it gets worse? What if we fill too fast? What if we sink? You feel the tightening, not in your hands, in your mind. The Buddha once said, just as a snake sheds its skin, we must shed our past over and over again. And perhaps tonight, it's time to shed that familiar skin of worry, because rain is not always a storm. Wren reaches behind him and produces a small wooden bowl. He places it beneath a steady drip from the boat's canopy and lets the water collect. No rush, just receptiveness. You know, he says, I used to panic every time it rained. I'd imagine everything going wrong. But I was never really reacting to the rain. I was reacting to fear. He looks at you kindly. Sometimes fear is just an old reflex, not truth. You nod. You know that feeling too well. The rapid heartbeat, the tightening jaw, the future projected in worst-case scenarios. But right now, the rain is soft. It isn't loud. It isn't trying to drown you. It's just falling. Ren shares a story now, one that unfolds like the sound of water dripping into a tin roof. A young man afraid of change kept a journal where he wrote down every possible outcome before he made a decision. Every job offer, every conversation, every new friendship. His notes were filled with, what if I fail? What if I look foolish? What if they leave? One day, an old teacher saw the notebook and said gently, your rain never even touches the earth. You keep it circling in clouds. The young man asked, then what should I do? The teacher answered, let it fall. You watch the rain. Now, really watch it. Each drop is its own life, beginning in the sky, ending in the sea, surrendered completely to gravity. No second guessing, no hesitation. You lift your face and let the rain touch your skin. It feels clean, honest, immediate. A few puddles collect in the base of the boat, but nothing alarming. Just little mirrors catching flickers of moonlight. You ask yourself, what am I holding as a fear? That is only a drizzle. Not every ripple is a wave. Not every cloud carries thunder. Some things pass through not to harm, but to remind you how strong your boat really is. Ren begins to hum again. Not a song, just a sound. Something low content. The kind of hum someone makes when they've stopped worrying about the weather and started listening to it. You do the same. Your breath slows, your thoughts slow. The rain doesn't stop, but it stops being a problem. And with every drop that falls, something inside you is loosening, shedding, washing away old fears, outdated warnings, stories that no longer fit. You don't bail out the boat. You don't fight the water. You just let it be there until it's ready to be gone. You tilt your face again and whisper, maybe to yourself, maybe to the rain, I trust this will pass. And I trust myself to float until it does. The boat drifts forward through soft rain, through quiet breath, through the simple truth that not every disturbance means danger. And tonight, you don't need to be dry to be safe. You just need to stay present. The rain tapers into silence, one drop at a time. No fanfare, no final downpour, just a quiet slowing, like a tired child curling into sleep. You breathe deeply, tasting the freshness that follows every storm. The air is scrubbed clean, soft as steamed rice. The boat drifts into a still stretch of the river. Around you, the trees lean closer, the water calms, and the clouds begin to thin. Above them, something glows. The moon, you hadn't realized it had vanished behind the clouds, but now it returns, whole and bright, as if it never left. Ren sits with his his hands resting on his knees, his eyes on the sky. "There it is," he says softly. "The thing we try to hold." You follow his gaze. The moonlight spreads across the water, reaching toward you in long, trembling streaks. It feels closer than before, so close you almost reach for it. And then you remember you can't hold the moon. The Buddha once said, "In the sky there is no track. In the realization of truth, there is no suffering." You stare at the reflection, feeling a strange ache in your chest. Not pain, something sweeter, like longing without sadness, like love without need. Ren lifts his hands slowly and cups them in front of his chest. His palms open toward the moon. He's not grasping, just receiving. Sometimes he says we don't need to take anything. We just need to feel its presence. You copy him, lifting your own hands, cupping the air as if holding the moon between your palms. The gesture feels sacred, like prayer, but without words or expectation. Your hands aren't empty. They're full of space. The moon fits perfectly. You remember a parable he told once, perhaps here, perhaps long ago. There was a thief who broke into a hermit's hut searching for valuables. But there was nothing to take, no gold, no treasure, only a robe and a bowl. The hermit returned, saw the thief, and said gently, "You came all this way. I wish I could give you something." The thief stood frozen. The hermit stepped outside and looked at the sky. "I wish I could give you the moon," he said, "but it doesn't belong to me." And then he sat smiling beneath its light. The thief fled, confused, but something inside him softened that night. Years later, he returned not as a thief, but as a student. You sit with that story now, cupping the moonlight, holding nothing and everything all at once. Ren whispers, "We chase things we can never own, not because we're foolish, but because we've forgotten how to be with what simply is." You close your hands slowly, gently, and press your palms to your chest. The moon remains where it was, whole, bright, untouched. You don't need to possess something to be changed by it. You ask yourself, what beauty have I tried to grasp that was always meant to be felt, not kept? The love that came and went, the friend who drifted away, but taught you how to listen. The joy that flickered through you for one perfect afternoon, then vanished like a breeze. None of it was wasted. You're learning now. What comes to you in openness leaves a trace far deeper than what you try to capture. Ren closes his eyes and breathes slowly. "I once thought holding the moon would make me whole," he says. "But now I know just seeing it clearly was always enough." You lie back again, the boat steady beneath you, the water like velvet, the moon above resting in the cradle of the sky. And you right here, not reaching, not clinging, just being. The night folds itself around you, soft and luminous, and in your chest, between your palms, something glows, not light exactly, but clarity. You've stopped chasing the moon, and somehow you've finally touched it. The moonlight now pours across the river like a path smooth and endless. The boat drifts along it gently, as if pulled by a thread of silver woven through water and air alike. You and Ren haven't spoken for some time, but the silence between you isn't empty. It's full of knowing. You rest your hand over your chest, still remembering the feeling of the moon between your palms, not something you held, but something you honored. And as the boat glides on, something inside you begins to stir, not with restlessness, but with release. Ren sighs a soft, satisfied sound, like someone who has come to the end of a long journey and found that nothing needed fixing after all. Do you remember your first memory of water? He asks gently. You pause. Maybe it was a beach or a bathtub or a puddle after a spring rain. But more than that, you remember how it made you feel held surrounded, weightless. Ren continues. Mine was falling into it. He chuckles. Chased after a ball when I was 5. And the sea taught me not everything can be grabbed. You smile, but he adds, it also taught me something else. That even when you let go, you float. He lifts a hand and points to a shadow beneath the water. That's where I once dropped my net. You peer into the dark water. At first, it's just shadow. But then the shape becomes clear. A tangled web, heavy and forgotten, lying at the bottom like an artifact. A net with no fish. A memory with no need to resurface. I left it there, Ren says. Not out of failure, out of choice. You realize now he's been telling this story all night. Not with chapters or titles, but with silence, with tea, with moonlight, with breath. The Buddha once said, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. And perhaps the spiritual life is not about burning bright, but about learning when to extinguish what no longer warms you. You look down again at the net, submerged and silent. It doesn't ask to be lifted. It isn't trying to be found. It rests like an old identity that once mattered, but doesn't anymore. Ren says I kept mending that net for years, patch after patch. I believed if I fixed it enough, it would bring me everything I wanted. And did it? You ask softly. He smiles. No. But letting it go gave me everything I needed. You think of your own nets woven from ambition, fear, guilt, roles you thought you had to play, people you thought you had to keep. Nets heavy with invisible catch, You've been carrying them a long time. But now you ask yourself, what would it mean to let the sea forget my net? Not to discard the past, not to deny it, but to let it stay where it is, beneath the surface, no longer needing to be pulled up and examined over and over. Maybe healing is just choosing not to lift what you've already laid down. You breathe in deeply. The night air smells of salt and something faintly sweet, jasmine, perhaps from the trees along the distant shore. It blends with the scent of damp wood and cooled tea, and something else you can't name but recognize like an old lullaby. Peace. Ren takes a small paper lantern from his pack, this one unlit, plain white. He sets it gently into the water, empty. I used to put wishes inside these, he says. Now I put gratitude. You watch it float soft and sour. You close your eyes. You don't need a net anymore. You don't need the fish. You don't need the struggle to prove something, become something, hold something. You were never meant to carry forever. You are already in the river, and the river knows the way. The net lies below, undisturbed. The surface is calm. The moon glides with you, patient and full. And for the first time in a long while, you stop reaching backward. You float. The river begins to widen again, the edges falling away into openness. The trees step back. The hills soften. And the stars above seem to press closer, as if leaning in to witness this final unfolding. You sit up slowly, the boat now drifting into a stretch of water, so still it mirrors the sky almost perfectly. You're not sure if you're floating through the heavens or through the earth anymore. And maybe it doesn't matter. Ren sits beside you, quiet, watching. He doesn't speak for a long time, but eventually he says, "You know, at the end of it all, I think the sea forgets everything." You glance at him, puzzled. He continues, "Every drop of sorrow, every net of craving, every moon we tried to capture, it forgets them all. Not because they didn't matter, but because they've served their purpose." You follow his gaze to the water again. You see the ripples spreading from your boat. One by one, they fade. There's no trace of the storm, no sign of the nets, no sign of anything, really just reflection, just peace. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." And maybe now, for the first time, you truly understand what that means. Because all night, you have wandered through parables and puddles, dragons and reeds, lanterns and bridges, and stillness was waiting in every single moment. Not as a destination, but as a quiet offering. Ren lifts a hand and gestures at the water. See that? You lean over the side. The ripples, soft, small, are the last remains of your motion. Then, nothing. Only the still surface, dark and whole. Even the river forgets, he says. But you'll remember. You let that wash through you. Not like a flood, like a war tide. You'll remember the bell without a clapper, the moon in the puddle, the dragon breathing beneath your thoughts, the bridge without railings, the invisible fish, the tea that cooled the feathers. You released the clouds that stopped resisting. You'll remember that stillness isn't the absence of movement. It's the presence of trust. There's one last story Ren shares now, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the night itself is finishing it with him. A teacher and student stood beside a pond. The student asked, "When will I be enlightened?" The teacher picked up a stone and dropped it in the water. The student watched the ripples, waiting for the answer. Then silence. The teacher said, "When even your questions make ripples wait." They stood until the water stilled again. Only then did the teacher whisper, "Now." You smile softly. You understand, not as an idea, as a feeling. Now, here. You close your eyes. You don't need more teaching tonight. You don't need more answers. The ripples have stopped. The breath has slowed. You let yourself dissolve gently into the rhythm of the river, the rhythm of the moment. And the last question you ask isn't a question at all. It's a prayer. Can I meet each moment like the moon meets the water, without struggle, without grasping, just presence? Ren leans back again, folding his hands behind his head, watching the stars blink slower now, as if they too are relaxing into sleep. You breathe in, you breathe out. There's nothing left to hold, only ripples remain. And now the boat drifts gently into the quiet edge of night. The stories have softened. The river has slowed. Even the moon seems drowsy. Now, its light gentler than before, like a hand pulling up the covers at the end of a long day. You rest your head against the side of the boat, feeling the worn wood press, cool and familiar against your skin. The waves are nearly imperceptible now. They don't rock, they breathe. A breeze moves across the water, slow and steady, just enough to kiss your cheeks and rustle your hair. It sounds like a whisper. It feels like a lullaby. The stars overhead blink slower, softer, and the sky itself seems to exhale. You've let go tonight of expectations, of old weight, of invisible fish and tangled nets. You've cupped the moon between your palms and watched your fears drift away like lanterns downriver. And now there's nothing to do, nowhere to be, no story to chase, only stillness. Let it cradle you. Let the soft hush of night draw your breath down to a whisper, your limbs to calm your thoughts to silence. You are floating, held, safe, a part of everything and nothing to prove. And if any thoughts arrive now, let them pass like feathers on the wind. If sleep comes, let it come gently like the tide, you are home, and the moon, that old friend, still shines above you. Still perfect, still untouched, still waiting to meet you again. In dreams,